Hello friends, this is Lindsay for Fontsy. Welcome back to another project video tutorial. Today we are talking about how to layer vinyl with registration marks. So this method of layering vinyl uses registration marks that you add in the design software and then cut out the vinyl with the registration marks on each different color of vinyl. And then you can use them to line up the different colors and get them placed exactly where you need them to be. And you can do this method with any cutting machine. So your Cricut, your Silhouette, your Scan and Cut, doesn't matter what you use to add the registration marks and cut them out. So adding the registration marks is the first thing that you want to do. So open up your design software and just add like 2 squares or 2 rectangles to usually the top of the design is the best place to put them. So again, you can do this with Cricut Design Space or Silhouette Studio or Better Canvas Workspace. Once you've added those squares or rectangles as your registration marks, then you are ready to start separating out the different colors of the design with those registration marks and then cutting them out with your machine. The next thing you'll do is cut out each different color of vinyl with those registration marks. So those squares or rectangles, leaving the registration marks in the same place for each color. So for example, with the sign I'm making, we have 4 different colors. We have white, red, green, and black. And I'm using Oracal 651 vinyl for this project. So for the white seeds, we're going to cut those out of white vinyl. With the registration marks at the top as well, and then weed out all the excess vinyl. And so here's the red layer with the registration marks cut and weeded, and then here's the green layer. It's a dark green with the registration marks. We'll go ahead and weed out the excess, and then lastly the black layer with the registration marks at the top, cut and weeded in vinyl. And again, it doesn't matter what machine you use to cut out the vinyl. The next thing you'll do is determine what layer is the frontmost layer. When layering vinyl, you're going to start layering with the frontmost layer first and then working your way down to the backmost layer. In this sign, it's the white layer. It's those white watermelon seeds because they sit on top of the red watermelon. Which then sits on top of the black outline. So you can use your design software to help you determine which layers sit on top of which. Then you'll need to cut a piece of transfer tape, and you want it to be as big as, or actually a little bit bigger than the finished design. And then you'll transfer that first layer onto the transfer tape in roughly the same spot as it would be in the finished design. So the watermelon seeds sit in the upper middle part of the design, so you're going to transfer the seeds to the transfer tape in about the same spot. And since you cut the transfer tape a little bit bigger than the completed design, you don't need to be very precise about that because there's a little bit of wiggle room built in. But just be sure to not only transfer the design, those watermelon seeds, but also the registration marks as well. So use a burnishing tool to burnish the transfer tape onto the vinyl really well. And then next it's time to transfer the next layer, which we already determined was the red watermelon layer. And you're going to do this by aligning those registration marks on the transfer tape with the registration marks on the red vinyl. And I find this easiest to do by flipping the design so that the registration marks are closest to me, and then also placing a piece of parchment over the design and exposing just the registration marks. And this piece of parchment protects you from the transfer tape, falling over accidentally and falling directly on top of the vinyl, because if it falls on top of the parchment, that will release easily, but if it fell over the vinyl, it would lift up the vinyl and ruin your decal. And then after aligning those registration marks, just remove the parchment paper and then lay the transfer tape down onto the vinyl underneath. But try not to distort the transfer tape while layering it down. It's already exactly where it needs to be, so don't push or pull it any more than you need to. Then use a burnishing tool to pick up that vinyl and then remove the vinyl backing. And then you're ready to move on to the next layer of vinyl. So that is the green layer. And since the green layer is so much smaller than the layer before it, that red layer, we're gonna place a piece of parchment on the work surface. And then we'll go ahead and align those registration marks just like before. Lay down that transfer tape. I'm also gonna put a piece of parchment over the vinyl to just expose the registration marks. But once that's lined up and I lay the transfer tape back down, the parchment paper underneath is protecting the transfer tape from falling directly onto my work surface and then the vinyl sticking to that and then ruining the vinyl decal. Then you're going to just repeat these steps for as many layers as you have. So we have just one more layer left, which is the black. And we'll go ahead and transfer it just like before and burnish it onto the transfer tape. So you remember you always want to work in order, starting with the frontmost layer and working to the backmost layer. And then this entire design has now been completely transferred onto the transfer tape and is almost ready for you to apply to your sign. What you want to do is make sure to remove the registration marks, so those vinyl squares, from the transfer tape before applying it to the desired surface. So there you have it, friends, how to layer vinyl using registration marks. So if you like the design that we used for this project, you'll find it in the stencil and sign design bundle at Fontsy. There's a link in the video description, so click on that to check it out. And then thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. Bye.